Welcome back to Practicing Catholic. The largest open studio art tour in the country is ready for its 29th year, and once again, some great Catholic artists are going to be part of it. Joining us to talk about next weekend's Art-A-Whirl in Northeast Minneapolis is Jenny Keller, a potter and parishioner at the Cathedral of St. Paul. Welcome to Practicing Catholic, Jenny.
Thank you so much. Great to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
It's so great to have you on. So can we talk a little bit about what is Art-A-Whirl and which location will you be at this year?
Yes. So as you mentioned, largest open studio tour and in North America, which is amazing that it's right here in Minnesota, right here in Minneapolis. It'll be at Northeast Minneapolis, and there are over 100 locations with 1,300 artists. Huge, and gets bigger every year. And I will be at St. Clement's location in Northeast Minneapolis.
Awesome. Thank you for that overview. So the reason you're here, can you tell us about JK Ceramics? How long have you been throwing pottery, and what inspired you to turn it into a business?
Yeah, so JK Ceramics has been around maybe 7 years. I've been making pots for 10, and I got started in high school, totally fell in love with it. Found out that I have a talent for it, and my amazing, incredible art teacher in high school really helped me develop those skills and work on my own. And so I started my business about 7 years ago, and I have been selling ever since, loving it, loving to do it in my free time. And so it's kind of my second job.
Yeah. The art teachers and the people who form us really play a huge role in our later lives. And it's so awesome that you had such a wonderful art teacher and that they saw that talent in you and really helped you hone it.
Exactly.
So for listeners who don't know much about pottery, can you walk us through the process of creating a piece, like, for example, one of your mugs?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have one here with me so I can, demonstrate as I talk for the listeners who are watching. So to start making a pot, you take a ball of clay, which is, unformed. It's just a ball of clay, which I'm going to get spiritual in a second, so keep notes. And so I work on the wheel, and I primarily throw my pieces. And so throwing is the verb that potters use when you're creating something on the wheel. You usually throw it down onto the wheel head. That's where the term comes from. So when I'm working on the wheel, I take a lump of clay, and then I work kind of against the centrifugal force, which is pulling it outwards. I'm keeping it in and then forming and shaping it to whatever I want it to be. And so that connects really deeply with the ethos of God as a potter and how he takes just this nothingness ball of clay and shapes it into something that is beautiful and functional and usable. So that's the process of throwing. So I throw my mugs, then I let it dry to become leather hard. Leather hard is when the clay feels kind of cold to the touch and hard. It almost feels like leather. That's why we call it that. And then I add a handle and I trim it. And so I finish up the bottom and then add a handle with a process called pulling. So I'll attach a wad of clay to the top of the mug where the handle starts. And then I'll use a kind of shaped like a tongue. Then I'll use a pulling motion downward to create the handle and create it to be a size that I feel comfortable with. And attach it. Then the drying process is really finicky because you need the mug to dry all the way through and evenly, and make sure that all attached parts to the clay are drying and adhering. And so just babysitting pots for a while as they dry. Then I take them to the kiln. And so the first firing, when they're completely dry, we put them in the kiln for what's called a bisque firing or a biscuit firing. And so that bisque firing takes the clay from a just dry clay state to a bisqueware state, which means the clay is no longer able to be recycled. It's no longer technically usable clay, but it becomes this porous surface. And that's when I introduce glaze, which is almost like a liquid glass that I create, which I'll talk a little bit more in a bit. And the porous surface soaks up all that glaze and sticks to it, which is what creates the shiny surface. And then we put it again in the kiln for its last glaze firing, and about 2,200 degrees Fahrenheit later, and maybe 12 to 15 hours of cooling, we've got a mug. So the whole process takes quite a while, and it's a lot of steps, but I've completely fallen in love with every part of the process, and it's a lot of hard work and hard labor, but it's just about my favorite thing to do.
Yeah, I feel like as you're explaining to it, I just have like this image of like truly making something with your hands, like being in with the clay and like using your hands to shape it and mold it and create these things, and to then have a product at the end that you can be like, wow, like my hands made this. That's so beautiful, so awesome. And I'm curious, do you ever use any of your own products like for yourself, or do you keep any?
It's a great question.
Yeah.
I get that question a lot, and I would say that it feels like you're talking to yourself if you're using your own mugs. I love to collect pottery. Friends of mine will know my cabinets cannot hold anymore. So I collect pots from other potters who I really admire. There are so many in the St. Croix River Valley who I have looked up to my whole artistic life. And but I use some of my own mugs. Like, I don't know if I'll be able to part with this one in particular. It's just got this light green glaze that I've totally fallen in love with this year. So the answer is not generally. If I want something in particular, like I wanted little plates to serve pie on that I wanted for my house, I'll make those. But when it comes to just day-to-day pots, I'd rather see another artist's work every day and feel the work of their hands and get to experience something new and different every morning.
Yeah, that's beautiful. So as we're talking about the types of work that you create, what kinds of works can people expect to find of yours at Art-A-Whirl?
Yes, lots of pots. So this year, what makes my work different this year is I've been diving a lot more into glaze chemistry this year. So I've always made my own glazes. So what that looks like is buying powdered chemicals in their source. So silica, for example, is like a powdered glass, and then you're adding fluxes and colorants. And so there's a lot of chemistry that goes into creating glazes. And so I've kind of went headfirst into that process this year. And so my brand the last 7 years has been very consistent. I've had one glaze, which I've used very consistently, which in a way is to help keep my brand strong, make my work identifiable, and it's something that, I love just a simple whitish gray glaze so I use a really dark stoneware. It's kind of a dark chocolate brown stoneware that is the basis of all of my pots, and I love for that to be exposed. So a mark of my work is really this dark chocolate stoneware with a lighter gray glaze on top. So that's, when you think of JK Ceramics, that's kind of the basic look. And this year I've wanted to dive more into color and exploring the chemistry that I get really excited and really passionate about. And so I've started collecting the colors that I've liked over the last couple of months, and I've found 7 additional glazes that I've brought into my portfolio this year. So what you can expect in my work is a continuation of my classic range of products with mugs, cups, bowls, vases, anything you'd find in your kitchen for functional use, and in this gray as well. But then you'll also find some new colors. So I'm really excited. My personal favorite, not the crowd personal favorite, but my personal favorite is this kind of color I'm calling pistachio. And it's kind of a light gray, green, sagey color with a little bit of speckles in it. I think it pairs really nicely with the chocolate brown. I also have... I'm excited about this kind of blue-green shiny glaze, which... is a nice color to add to the portfolio. And then the crowd favorite is the periwinkle. So these are some of my, if you're watching us, you can see some of my mug shapes that I have. I've got kind of my standard utility mug, which is great for every day, squat mug for, it's a little bit more beautiful, got a little bit more visual intrigue to it, and then my swirly cups, which have a lot of movement and are a lot of fun. So this is kind of that light periwinkle lilac color, which is really fun and kind of pops against that dark chocolate brown. So lots of new colors. I also have been working with some matte glazes for my vases. I've got kind of a denim-y color, and then what I like to call green bean, which that color brings me so much joy. Yeah. So lots of fun with glazes this year, and latte mugs are also a big bestseller. Lots of friends with lattes. So that's a little bit of what to expect from my products this year is the continuation of what people love about my brand with also this new life of color and beauty that I'm really excited about, all because of the wonders of science.
Yeah, I was going to say, I didn't realize that so much chemistry can be part of pottery.
Oh, yeah. I've got about 4 glazed textbooks beside my bed. I read a little bit every night. Yeah. It's a lot of fun.
It. Not just a potter, but also a woman in STEM.
Oh, woman in STEM.
So as you're making each piece, what is kind of your mindset in approaching it and just throughout the process?
Mm-hmm. So as I described the process, there's a lot of steps and a lot of attention to detail in each part of that process. Mm-hmm. But my mindset when I go into it, I have to say that my favorite part of the making process is when I sit down to throw. This first process of having this 25-pound block of clay and you're wedging it, you're moving the molecules, and I'm thinking about the structure of clay and how it works, and all these little molecules in it are shaped almost like pennies. They're kind of scattered in all different directions like sprinkles. And so when you're wedging clay, it's like kneading dough. And you're moving the molecules together. You're taking out any air pockets, and you're really working the clay. So that's a very physical component of my work, and it's a great way to warm up, and also just get great arms. Yeah. And then I sit down to throw with all these weighed out balls of clay. One part of the process, which I have completely fallen in love with, is production pottery. And this is what got me started selling and what got me started in this making process, where I was mesmerized by these videos of these old British potters and Japanese potters who are throwing 50 to 100 to 1,000 pieces all in the exact same shape right in a row. And so I had this drive to learn how to do repetitive throwing very well. So my favorite part about throwing is just seeing a full wearboard at the end of my 6 hours or whatever I'm doing of throwing, and seeing 50 of the same mug and they're all exactly the same size. It brings me joy to see that my hands are successful and my muscle memory is where I think it is, and it brings me a lot of joy. So that's why I started selling, because when you get good at pottery, when you get good at repetitive and production pottery, you have a lot of product at the end of the day. So I've always had an entrepreneurial mindset, and I've always wanted to have a business and have a side hustle and get a little extra income. So that's one part of why I love doing production pottery.
Yes.
Now, my kind of mindset, my ethos going into it, I feel so deeply that pottery is a part of my vocation, lowercase v vocation. Mm-hmm. Like, it is something I have always felt like I am meant to do. And when I sit down to make, whether I'm just processing my day, or I'm listening to a playlist of my favorite songs and I'm singing with it, or I'm praying, or I'm watching a movie I've seen 300 times, it's, I'm thinking about how I'm moving the clay, and I'm putting my life and my experience into whatever I'm making. So I think a lot about the concept of God as a potter. We see this concept throughout Scripture in tens of places, and in all different books. And what we see is that, God created the world. God, the first story is God creating the world and Him as a creator. And so when we are able to use our hands to create something, we are working in His image and likeness. And I feel so close to Him when I'm able to see something come from nothing. And I feel it's a wonderful process that brings me really close to that experience. And also just seeing this ball of clay, which is nothing, become something beautiful and something that brings the people around me joy, and my customers joy, and people across the country who are using my work and who are interacting with something I made with my hands each morning and each day. It's really a special feeling. So I carry that with me all throughout the process, really the love of people who will have it in their hands, and also what joy it can bring me that I can be a part of someone's day without necessarily being in the room with them.
Mm-hmm. Definitely participating in that idea of creation and participating in God's creation, but also just creating something simply just because it brings other people joy. Just like the glazes that you're using with all the color, like brings joy to people. And that's so awesome that you can do that and that you could recognize that there's this push or pull for you to do this. It's awesome.
Thanks, Kayla.
So we're almost wrapping up our time, but I have a couple questions left for you. Number one, why would you encourage listeners in general to just buy more products locally or through small artists and businesses?
Why buy pottery? Jeremiah 17, I think, it says, go down to the potter's house and buy an earthen flask. And I stand by that. No, I would say that, shop locally. I think we all understand that the reason for shopping small businesses and encouraging local artists, with the history with innovation always comes a pushback from the Industrial Revolution came the arts and crafts movements in the 1900s. And then, with all these things, the digital age now has come the DIY revolution and this increased need for crafts and artisans. But you can go and buy a mug at Target. That is an easy thing to do. And it's a beautiful mug and that's great. It's, I have plenty of that in my house as well. But when you're able to drink out of something that I have put my life and my passion into and, my thoughts and my hands have touched every part of this process, I think that you'll find the experience of drinking out of something that was made by someone or someone that their human hands have touched every part of this process, it's just a different experience. And when you can see the work and the mark of the potter's hands, and you can see the fingerprint of where I've been and where I placed my stamp and know that I trimmed the foot of this pot, it's just a different experience when you're drinking in the morning. And also, it's beautiful and it's unique. And it's just another way to bring more beauty into our lives and less machines. Mm-hmm.
I feel so deeply what you are saying. Just from my experience of using stuff that I know is from a local artist, it has a different feeling when you hold it in your hands and when you're using it. You can feel their story in it, which is so beautiful and just it's such a different experience than just having something from Target, which I do as well. We're all guilty of it, but it is a different experience. Mm-hmm. So as we wrap up, Jenny, how can listeners get in touch and get their hands on some JK ceramics?
First of all, come to Art-A-Whirl. I would love to see everyone there. So again, I'll be at St. Clement's May 17th through the 19th. And it's free to the public. I think there's 15 artists there this year.
Wow.
At my location, all Catholic artists. It'll be a really great experience, but everywhere in Northeast is just blossoming with food trucks and people everywhere, artists everywhere. It's a great way to spend the weekend. So I'd really encourage people first to come there and please come up and meet me. I would love to meet you. And then also, if you want to get in touch with me on Etsy, I will have my Etsy shop open the week after Art-A-Whirl. So obviously everything's closed down right now just because I want to save all of my product in the meantime for this weekend. And then afterwards, I'll have it open. You can feel free to message me on there. You can also get in touch with me on JK Ceramics on Instagram. My handle is @JK Ceramics. And I'll be happy to answer any of your questions. I'll also probably be looking at the comments on this podcast. So if you leave me a comment, you can get in touch with me.
Yes, so she's reachable, you guys. Yeah. Well, Jenny, thank you so much for joining us. I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation.
Me too. Thanks so much for having me, Kayla. And I hope to see everyone at Art-A-Whirl.
Yes, for sure. Listeners, make sure to check out Art-A-Whirl. That's at St. Clement's, May 17th through 19th in Northeast Minneapolis. And also make sure to follow Jenny on Instagram at JK Ceramics.